This is Van Electric Ghost doing it live on the air with Lisa Lacy for the first time. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here and chat with you. Thanks so much for
Well, we
having
love,
me.
thank you. I mean, we love to talk to people live. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. And live is like kind of our jam. We're going to talk to you. You're a writer, trauma educator, and author of the upcoming memoir, Notes from a Certified Madwoman, and its companion field guide for survival, healing, and self understanding. You've had over 3 decades in corporate education, healthcare consulting, performance, and storytelling. So you're the type of person we love to talk to creative people or entrepreneurs and have their own vision and ideas, and that's what we're all about here. One thing we always ask every guest before we get to the heart of your story is like, what motivates you?
Uh, Emotional and physical pain is a good motivator for me to change.
So that's why you wanted to like pay it forward and tell your story and maybe have the benefit of your experience and write a book.
Well, I suffer from a congenital blood disease, and in January I had another near death scare due to this illness, and turned 50 right after. So it was two pivotal moments back to back. And we had grandiose plans for my 50th birthday, lots of people. And I canceled all of that. I
Mm.
ran off by myself to the mountains with my 21-year-old dog that I've had since he was 3 months old. And Wednesday came. That was the day I turned 50. I was watching this beautiful mountain view with a beautiful sunset, crying because I was not where I thought I needed to be. And Keith, it's at that moment that it hit me that I have stories. I'm a trained storyteller that I think can help people suffer less. And I don't want to take those stories with me. I want to make sure they get told before I transition.
That's why I always ask a lot of people, like, what gives you the permission, as a creative person to put your work in the ether? Because there's a lot of people who say, well, I want to write that book, or I want to write that song, or I want to write that screenplay, I want to do that painting, but then they don't do it because
Yeah.
they're like, they get so scared of like, oh, what are people going to think? What are the haters going to do? And so this interesting thing I ask all creative people is like, what made you feel that you actually could write the book, could do that movie, it could do that work? Was it that pivotal
Um,
moment?
it was that pivotal moment to write this book next. There was another book in line to come out before it. But I think so many people, especially high functioning people, especially women in corporate environments, are suffering alone and suffering behind the scenes and suffering without even realizing that it's happening because they don't have language for it. So,
Mhm.
and the story wrote itself in it that it's lived experience. So it was just a matter of how do I want to format the stories? What stories, the wild ones, do I want to tell? Which
Mhm.
ones do I want to leave out? And what are going to help people the most? So the story, the book kind of wrote itself. It was more of a process of structuring it in a way that made sense and helped people the most.
Yeah, that structure is always the hard part because a lot of times as artists, well, I think one of the things that the artists can do is like there's a lot of noise, and artists can go and take whatever is the noise and like actually zero in on the theme,
Yeah.
zero in on the story. Like, and as a songwriter, and like my story's like 4 minutes long or maybe 9 minutes long. Authors like their stories like 70,000 words, 200,000 words, filmmakers like 2 hours long. So like when you're able to like take all that content that's floating around in the ether, that's inside and it's outside, it's the synthesis of the internal and the external, the subconscious and the conscious. That's what I think, what I found that artists can do.
Yeah, and my that brings me to a point that my shamanic trauma coach once asked me, because I'm an idea person and I've got tons of ideas floating around, like you said. But am I the one to birth this creation into existence? We can have all these great ideas, But the question I ask myself now is, am I the one to birth this idea into existence? And I think it's a fair question to ask. And it helps we idea brains with 100,000 of them floating around pick and choose very selectively the ones that get told next.
Yeah, 'cause it's interesting. Because I was talking to this writer and they said, I kind of have these download from the universe sessions. I go on my typewriter because this person actually still used the typewriter because that was their process, and they just go banging out. And it's just kind of just they might have an outline, but then like when they hit the typewriter, the outline goes out the window and they just type. And then they go, maybe they compare the outline to what they just did, and then they start to piece it together. And it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
actually doesn't belong in this piece. This belongs in a different piece. So, but
Yeah.
this is kind of like the process because sometimes it's not sequential.
No.
I was talking to filmmakers, they film the last scene first, right?
Yeah.
They film the middle scene at the end. A lot of musicians, like we got the hook, but it was a hook from like 2 years ago. It was a hook from a dream last night. And then the rest of it came from this and came from that, and he kind of pieced it together. But everybody's thinking it's like, oh, it's all in order. A lot of things are not in order.
No, it's not. Well, my husband's a mechanic by day and musician by night. So he's a storyteller himself. And watching his process of writing really makes me realize that we all have our own process. My process is a scribble scratch that you can't read, but I can read
You can
on
read it,
a
yeah.
piece of paper. We're talking, before the internet as a trained storyteller. My husband's process is different than that. So I think all creatives have their own process. As long as we're true to that process, then the end product will be what's most beneficial to the people that hear it, feel it, sense it, get to experience it.
Yeah, it's interesting, like the idea of high functioning survival. Can you talk to me what that term means to you and what it looks like for women?
Yeah, it looks like success. It looks like a lot of success, but behind the scenes, it's unraveling. And I highlighted it earlier. Sometimes it's unraveling and not even realizing that it's happening to you because you're winning the awards. You've got the money in the bank account. The six figures are flowing easy. You're managing the people on your team skillfully. It is possible to have a healthy career and a very miserable personal life. So you can be great in business and terrible at human relations.
Yeah.
And eventually, those two are going to catch up with you. That's what I always say. You can only sustain it for so long before something cracks. And for me, cracking was a full blown mental health psychosis. I mean, I was checked out into another reality, but high functioning survival looks like success on the surface. It looks very polished, it looks very clean, it can look very organized, when in reality, that person is silently suffering and slowly unraveling behind the scenes.
It seems like, I've always found that a lot of creative people take like the melodrama of life or crucible moments in life, and that is their inspiration. So it's very cathartic for a lot of creative people to take those very vulnerable events and then turn them into art. And then what sometimes happens, like songwriters or musicians, like your best work came from like some of your worst moments.
Mhm.
And then your management says, can you replicate that? And then you end up being like, well, can I only replicate that if I'm not happy? Right. So then do I have to make myself not happy to be successful? And I think a lot of people, and like it's not just the musician that falls into that. I think there's a lot of people that fall into that because their process might be tied to those type of events.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to keep suffering. I don't know that we have to keep suffering to create. I think we can pull from the first or second dark night
Mhm.
enough
enough
material
and not keep on.
to have to keep suffering. But I see what you're saying about I've got to be in abysmal turmoil to generate this
Be
heart-wrenching
authentic. It's kind
song.
of like the person that thinks they have to be like the starving artist to
Yes.
be legitimate. Like you talk to a young, 20 something artist and they think, well, I gotta be in the Econoline van, eating crackers, having
Ramen.
camel soup,
Yeah.
going from town to town, barely having anything to be legitimate. Because if I'm actually $1,000,000 wearing furs and gold and wow, that's not legitimate. I'm not really that's just like if I'm saying something, I'm kind of faking it compared to
Yeah.
like I'm actually living it. Like Jack Kerouac on the road is like the idea, Hemingway, I gotta live it. Do you really have to be an alcoholic to be a great writer? I don't think so, but maybe you
Mhm.
might think you have to because you like I'm trying to mimic like a great
Well,
one. You don't have to be that.
you don't have to be that, and you brought up the key word, faking it. If you are faking it, if it's not reality in terms of who you really are, it's going to be inauthentic. And I think all of us are tired of being pitched to. We're tired of seeing the polished people. We're hungry for the truth. We're hungry for the realness. We're hungry for the rawness. So if if you're a millionaire and want to be a musician, then go use your money to support your craft. I mean, take that gift and support your craft and put beautiful music out into the world. I think as long as there's integrity behind it and there's and it's real, then and it's real for us, because at the end of the day, what came out of all of those struggles and the healing journey for the past 10 years has been that I like myself as a human. That's it.
Mhm.
Not it has nothing to do with the money that's been tied to the success. It's that I like myself as a human. I understand myself as a human. I know how I tick and click. I know how I operate, and I can articulate that to the people who love and care about me so they can show up to support me best, and I can do that for them in return. But I think we're all starving for what's really happening
Yeah,
behind the scenes.
I think we're all tired of AI slop.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
people want like, I'm just to disclose, I'm 58 years old. When I was 27, I had a sarcoma and I
mhm,
survived it. And so I'm a cancer survivor. But what I found when I was 27 and that happened, there were like my younger people that were 20 something around me. They were kind of scared of that mortality.
yeah,
And there were some of my friends that I expected them to be there with me, but they
mhm,
couldn't handle that mortality of that situation. And so they just peeled off and I never saw them again. And there were
yeah,
other people that I didn't expect to be around and they stayed around. And what I kind of learned from that like near death experience, it was like, wow, that the cancer, I ended up like, thanking the situation because it let me see the world like in a different way.
yeah,
And I started to realize there were things that I was creating ceilings for myself. There were people that were around me that maybe I didn't understand what was going on. And so I ended up post cancer having a different worldview
yeah.
and being not limited by my own fear. I started to realize there were things I could do and why not? Because
Why
you
not's
only
a
have so
great
much time.
question. Yeah, why not? Why not is a great question. And if you want to know what your friend's capacity is, go through some hard times and you'll learn what their capacity is. And it's not a judgment on them. Mortality does make people uncomfortable. In some cases, people don't know what to say. In some cases, it makes them so uncomfortable that they don't know how to be around that. But yes, if you want to learn your friend's capacity, go through some hard times, because some are going to drop off. And you're right, you will probably never see them again. But what always ends up happening as you expand, as you grow, as you raise your vibration, more people come into your circle. And honestly, my friend, if we get two or three good ones that really have our back, that are outside of our chosen family, then we're darn lucky.
Yeah, it's like a law of attraction. The people that need to be around you are around you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like okay, things in over time you evolve. It's like the 17-year-old me was 17-year-old me, and I was in that world. 58-year-old me is in this world. And
Yeah.
so there are some people that were around when I was 17, and there's some people aren't. And there's all kinds of people I never knew that I'm around now. And I would
Yeah.
expect 10 years from now, same thing. Things happen over time. And, everything's point in time as an artist. A lot of times, like what I'm thinking, feeling today, and I put into my work might not be what I'm going to put into my work 10 years from now. That's
Yeah.
just the way it is.
Well, what I'm feeling today is not going to be what I'm feeling tomorrow. That's how I'm built in design. So I can't get too tied to anything and just really hold to the notion that it's going to change, it's going to shift. Again, doing all of this work doesn't mean you don't still have the hard days. You know that from surviving. They still happen, but you get better at coping and dealing with them. And you're right. We build ourselves on the shoulders of our previous selves. And you brought up another important fact. I think a perspective shift is all that we need for huge, huge transformational growth. We don't need to write in the journal every day for 15 hours. It'd be great if we could meditate for 4 or 5 hours at a time. Not much of that on my end. Observation is not neutral. That's quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
So just observing where you're at, say right now you're looking around your life going, wait, having that Wednesday turning 50 moment where, wait a minute, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is not where I want to be. Observation is not neutral. Once you observe, you've already experienced a perspective shift. And that's where the biggest growth comes in.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the Victorians had the idea of the looking glass self. And so they look in the mirror and say, who's looking back? And
Yeah.
that introspection is super important
Yeah.
because if you don't have the ability to say, like, hey, maybe why did I do that? Why am I feeling this? Right. And you don't assess it, you just push it down. Like, well, I don't like it because it makes me feel bad. Or I don't like it because it makes me feel angry. But why are you feeling bad? Why are you angry? Why are you sad? If you start to dive into it, then that's where the creativity comes instead of getting angry and punching a wall or being, suddenly saying like mean things, which maybe you got to put it out into the world. Like, what if you actually process it?
Yeah.
What if you
And
actually,
use it as fuel,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, anger is a great tool for some fire, some passion, some fuel. And my current work in my personal life and professionally in terms of executive coaching is looking at the psychology of performing. Like, what did you, and who did you perform in order to survive? And it's asking a hard question. And it's back to your point of introspection, because sometimes you're not going to like the answers to that, but
You know,
that's where it starts. When you
yeah,
go, oh, I did this in order to stay in that relationship. Wow. Won't do that again. Can't believe I did it. Feel a little dumb. Try to do it without self deprecation and judgment. But um, this existence was and is always about me in this existence. And for the majority of my life, I was so other focused,
oh,
not only in taking care of people, but in
like people
blaming
pleaser,
people too.
like
Yeah,
people
people
please.
pleaser, but also blaming, it's all my
Oh, yeah,
parents' fault. It's my second husband's fault. Stuck in victim mentality. So you can be both at the same time, a people pleaser and stuck in victim mentality at the same time. And both are going to keep you stuck.
yeah. You're not gonna like the problem you get when musicians. We talk about bad loop. You get a loop, and it's like what's annoying. 'Cause you get this loop, and it's like it's catchy, but it's annoying.
Yeah.
I can't get it out of my head. And it's like, well, let me get past it and try to get to the next thing. Because like if I ignore it, then it's just gonna keep on looping. It's like I better understand like why do I keep on hearing this? And like maybe I need to get into it, unpack it, and figure it out. And then when you get real creative, it's like, why I inverted it? I converted it. I like turned it inside out. I restructured it, and then now you can't even see it's unrecognizable, and you've moved ahead and you carry it into
Yes.
something else.
I love your word convert. I use the word transmute, same thing. You've used it again as fuel to move forward. If there's not forward trajectory, I mean that's the one thing about therapy is a rite of passage. Therapy helps you look backwards to see what you experienced to help give you language to things. But if you stay stuck there in telling the same story over and over and over again, you're going to stay exactly where you are, feeling exactly where you are. So I always tell people if you've got that finger pointed outwards at them, whatever it is, caretaking them, blaming them, take that finger, turn it inward, and ask, what's your part? Even people pleasing has its own form of manipulation attached to it because I'm people pleasing to try to control the situation, right? To
Hmm.
maybe avoid conflict or to avoid an argument. It's still a form of manipulation. People
Yeah.
pleasing is.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're gonna hit your max people pleasing, and then
Mhm.
you can people are gonna suddenly say, "Well, why are you upset? You've always done that." Because you actually were looking for something, and you weren't doing it without looking for something, and you didn't get it. And whatever your threshold was, you finally hit it, and then you stop, and you say, "Well, I thought you liked doing that." But
A threshold is interesting to reach with people around you when you start setting boundaries and rocking the boat.
yeah,
After my 50th birthday, a lot changed very, very quickly for people in my life. It was a self-respect as my core value, and if it doesn't adhere to that, it doesn't get done. And me first, and it's me first in a selfless way because my mental health has to come first. My physical health now has to come first. And I can't be of service to the people I love and care about and show up and support them in the way that I want to if I'm not at least 80%. So if I'm having a 60% day, I let people know I'm having a 60% day
yeah,
today. I'll do my best to support you, but we may have to put this off for tomorrow or the next day.
yeah. You just have to be, put the boundaries up. And a lot of times, also, a lot of folks aren't able to tell the truth, because they're scared of the truth. And instead of telling the truth, is like you'll stay in a toxic workplace. You'll stay in a
Mhm.
toxic relationship. You'll stay in a toxic neighborhood because it's like it's more frightening to know what it is outside of that. But you're like, well, how could that be worse? Well, you're so used to being in the toxicity that you think outside of that is more frightening.
Well, I think those of us who are conditioned for chaos and toxicity, especially starting very, very young, of course, to your point, get very comfortable in that. I think sometimes without language for what has happened and is happening to us, it's harder to see. But my friend, we all lie. We lie to ourselves and we lie to each other. Every single one of us at some point are doing it. That's why I always, when I'm talking to people, I'm like, look, they're probably lying to themselves. So they might be lying to you too. But
Hmm.
I think if we have language for what is occurring, it helps us make smarter, wiser decisions for what's best for us. But sometimes we're stuck in that toxicity and we don't have language for it. We don't actually, we know we're miserable. We know we don't like it. We know it rewounds us. I think the word trigger is so overused, but it rewounds us. But we may not always know why or how without an outside perspective. My friends and I have an agreement. We don't do unsolicited advice. If we need to vent, we don't trauma dump on each other. We'll say, all right, do you need me to listen or are you open to advice? We talk to each other that way. I think finding a supportive circle where you guys have agreements in terms of how you're going to engage is of the utmost importance. And please, by all means, surround yourself with people who will call you out on your own BS. My best friend She will call me out on my own BS, and she'll say, "I love you, but also you're being a bit of an asshole."
Yeah, well, that's always good to be able to deal with, you know, constructive criticism,
Yeah.
because some people feel like all criticism is destructive, right? And then
No.
they don't wanna learn, like, lessons learned. Like,
Yeah.
I deal with, in my my day job, I'm a software guy, and we have to deal with what we call iterative development because, like, whatever we didn't know yesterday, well, we know today.
Yeah.
Instead of beating ourselves up because we didn't know it, we just iterate, and you get that new update for that phone app on your phone because we didn't know that yesterday, but we know that today. We're not gonna beat ourselves up, we just fix it.
Yeah.
And
It's an
so,
update.
yeah, it's an
It's like
update.
us getting software updates. Somebody calling you out on your BS is like, if you listen, is like you getting a software update if you take it and apply it. And you don't always have to agree with it. You could be like, oh, I don't. Sometimes we'll even say, would you like to stay in denial today? And I go, yes, yes, I would. Denial is the choice of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is. It's a software update. Every time we have a change in perspective that leads to forward trajectory is a software update to our neural system.
Yeah, you can reprogram it, you can kinda like, it it's hard because some folks don't wanna get that have that update
Mhm,
because they're kind of tied to I like the good old days when I
mhm.
kept on hitting my head against the wall, and I thought that was great. Like, it's like, okay, you really like that? Like, it's like you're romanticizing hitting your head on the wall.
Yeah,
Do you really love that? Or you just think you love that? And so, I think a lot of folks is like they romanticize something just because it's in the past.
yeah.
Just because it's in the past doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, well, I saw something, on the 2 questions we're asking ourselves in the healing arena that, drive me a little bonkers is, "Who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? And how do you get back to who you were before the pain happened?" Well, I definitely don't want to go back over here because she's the gal who got me in lots of trouble. So
Yeah,
I want to go back there, and I don't know who I'm becoming without knowing who
I was.
survival made me today. Yes. So again, it gets back to that being responsible for your hardware and being open to those software updates. And you're right. You know what? Some people in this lifetime are not going to do this work, and that has to be okay. I have family members never going to do this work. Totally fine. There are some things we can talk about. There are some things we can't talk about. Some things are off limits to protect my um, uh, ability to stabilize. But it's okay. Some people aren't called to do this level of personal excavation this time around. And it has to be fine. We have to meet each other where we're at.
Yeah, people are only where they are, like, if
Yeah.
some folks, it's like you spend so much time, is like, trying to change folks thinking that they can change. It's like, there's no evidence of that. So it's like if
No.
you're taking a bet on, like, I'm gonna take this guy, right? And he's done this for his whole life, but I'm gonna be the guy that changes that. Like,
Oh, I did
really?
that for 13 years in a marriage. I'm gonna love this guy enough that he's gonna change. And there was not 1 ounce of evidence, actionable behavior to show me that that was going to happen. But we delude ourselves too. We, even without being in a full-blown mental health psychosis, we can be delusional. So yes, i
Yeah,
i spent 14 years thinking if I perform enough, if I produce enough, if I put up with enough, this is going to change. And it took inpatient rehabilitation and a team of 5 of the most brilliant psychotherapists that I've ever met to tell me otherwise. I needed an outside perspective to really, really, really get in here because when they told me I was in a trauma bonded relationship, my response to them was like, I'm too smart for that. Like, certainly not. I'm
Yeah.
too smart for that. And it was about 2 years later, I was like, oh, I'm in a trauma bonded relationship. So some of us are a little more stubborn than others, and it takes what it takes. But look, these lessons, they're going to keep repeating until we get it. We'll be
Yeah.
on that loop until
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
get it and change it.
It's hard because some folks to think it's like if I move to this next town, I move to the next country, I change my job. But the one thing that's common is like you. Like
Yeah.
if you never change you, right? If you don't love yourself, how are you gonna love anybody else? Right? If you don't handle your trauma and you push it down, and then how is it ever gonna get resolved? And it hurts, it's like to deal with pain, it's pain. Like pain
Mhm.
is gonna hurt no matter. There's no way to sugarcoat it. And sometimes in life you have to work through things. But we medicate, we kind of gloss over. We don't want to look bad, so we'll put a mask on. We put the put the airs on. Put all this artifice around. You build up, and sometimes you look at the super successful people. You look at like the trillionaire, billionaire class, and they seem to be a little angry. They seem to be really, they seem to be out of sorts. It's like, with all that money I thought was gonna win the lottery, I'm gonna be happy. It's like how many times people win the lottery and then the next year they have no money,
Yeah.
and then they're still not happy
Yeah.
because it wasn't the money, it was
It
something
was
else.
never the money. It was never the money because again, I had it. I had what looked polished on the surface. I had what people would equate to, oh, she made it. It's success. Um, and I was miserable underneath. So you're absolutely right. That's why it's so important. And here's the thing too that really shocked me. I was drowning those emotions in a bottle for 20 years, running from them. When you turn and face them, it's not as terrible as you think. As a matter of fact, most times you go, oh, well, this isn't so bad. Looking at, you know, what's happening today is tied to something that happened to me when I was 9, and I'm still responding as that 9-year-old little person that got hurt or betrayed. It's not as bad when you turn around and look. It's actually so much better than staying stuck in a cycle that will eventually unravel everything rather than you making a conscious choice and taking part in changing it yourself first.
Yeah, I think taking personal responsibility and also just an assessment of, like, again, the Victorian looking glass self is like you have to learn, like you have to like evolve in your own personal being.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you stay as that 10-year-old or 11-year-old or 7-year-old, that's gonna keep you in that bubble. And that's not very it's not gonna help you move forward in life if you keep on, just repeating that loop. It just gets you stuck in this repeating trauma bond with yourself.
Yeah.
And in
Well,
the
and
order
that's
to
where the
yeah,
suffering is in
yeah.
that loop. And my goal is to help people suffer less, feel a little bit better every day and suffer less. But yeah, it's that loop that is in the suffering. But to change neural pathways is not such an easy gig. It
No.
starts with one thought at a time. When I first started reframing, the art of reframing, which looks like this, I'd be doing something and get sidetracked, and a loop in my head. You're so stupid. You're such an f up. You're gonna blow things up again. Would be going on in my head for 10 minutes before I caught it, right?
Mhm.
So then you catch the thought and then you change the thought, you reframe it, you replace it with what are the statements of fact? I love sticking to statements of fact because you can see them, right? And they're easy to logistically and logically understand. The statement of fact is I'm actually a highly intelligent woman. So I had to start replacing that "you're such an F up, you're so stupid" with "I'm a highly intelligent woman." Another one I constantly told myself was "you'll never have healthy relationships."
Mm.
And I'm here to tell you, when you change your relationships and you are supported in healthy ways in them, you can reach for the stars. I mean, everything changes when you start developing healthy, supportive relationships that are not bleeding toxicity onto you. Because I'm here to tell you, if you're in toxic relationships, you're probably a little toxic too.
Yeah,
I was
it's
certainly
like a
toxic
law of
too.
attraction kind of draws you to like if you're things are all frequencies.
Yeah.
I'm a musician. I always like talk about frequencies. Like if you have like a punk rock frequency, you got the grunge mosh pit. Everybody's chaotic, they're bouncing around, slamming into each other, right? If you've got like the candle moment where you got your lighter up and everybody's harmonious, it's like a love thing.
Yeah.
Everybody's thinking love it. Now nobody's gonna be like smacking each other. Nobody's gonna be trying to punch each other or kick each other because then you're kind of in that framework of like, yeah, this harmony, it's peace, it's a positive affirmation. Music can put you on frequencies. And then not
Absolutely.
only is like your voice is musical.
Mhm.
So if you have a voice that's very like jarring and angry and kind of, it's just discordant rather than harmonious, then you're gonna bring discordant things around you.
Well,
And
it's gonna rattle people's nervous systems.
yeah,
Yeah. And I talk about this a lot too. A strange phenomenon in the past 10 years happens when it comes to coaching and helping people. If you will just work on you, just you, not them, not other focus, but just work on you, raising your vibration, being accountable for your power. I think we hide our power, especially females. You know, a lot of us feel guilt and shame for having power. But if you just work on you, everybody around you raises up to meet you at that vibration. Now, that's not saying that they're going to be up here with you all the time,
yeah.
but an interesting phenomenon happens when you just work with you. And so, right now I'm looking for maximum efficiency with minimal output, and that's why I'm working with executive level coaching, because if they change themselves, just change themselves, their leadership style is going to automatically change, and that's going to affect everybody that they're responsible for and to.
Well, that's very positive because like, if you get to the leadership, that they really need to get on the right train.
Mhm.
Because like in a lot
Or
of
a
people
different one, get on a different train.
yeah, this one because sometimes it's like if we have that toxicity in the leadership level of society, because I was a sociology major, and like you've got the macrocosm and the microcosm. And the macrocosm is like, it's the society. It's like it's that corporation structure. It's that town. It's the city. It's the government. It's nations. But at the microcosm, it's the individual. What happens is that individual, in the microcosm, he might be a leader in the macrocosm. He's a leader of an organization. He's a leader of a nation. He's a leader of a city. If he has a toxic style, they will kind of just permeate through the whole structure. And it could have come because he had a bad childhood and
Yeah,
he had bad negative things happen. He ended up bringing that vibe all the way to a leadership position, and now it's affecting like the whole society. So that one individual could end up causing a lot of damage
yeah,
if that people think, well, that's the way to be. Well,
yeah.
maybe that's not the way to be.
Well, and sending a lot of people home crying, hating their jobs,
Yeah.
and we spend a lot of time at our jobs. I think part of the solution there is giving leaders a place to go. It's going to be harder for them to ask for help. That was another thing. I didn't tell anyone I was struggling.
Mhm.
So, speaking of that 13-year marriage, by the time I got out of that, I had painted such a pretty picture of that thing By the time I got out of it, people were like, "No way." I was like, "Yes, this was all happening.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
this
had
was
the
all
mask
happening."
on. Yeah, you
I
had the
just masked it and posted pretty pictures of the family all over my socials, and everything was great. So by the time I got out of it, there was like, there's no way all that was happening. And I was like, yes, indeed. So we need safe places for our leaders to go. I think a lot of them feel like it's weakness to ask for support, to ask for help. But if their teams are not productive and there is a lot of internal conflict within their teams, it could be a sign that leadership needs a little bit of an overhaul. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of times folks, you know, I think at the top don't understand, like, I had an example. I lived in Japan for a while, for a couple of years, and what you notice sometimes, like, in the workplace, like, on the production floor, people felt like they could give advice to the people in the boardroom. The people like somebody on a production floor could go and say, "Hey, I don't think that this is the right way to do this."
Mhm.
They could go send that to the architect or the engineer, and they would actually listen.
Yeah.
Where in some organizations, like, there's no way anybody on the floor knows anything. They're just supposed to do what I tell them.
Yeah.
They're never gonna listen to anything you have to say, so they're gonna be like, "Oh, I'm like a robot. Nobody's gonna care." And then they might say, "Well, how much do they care about the job if they know they can't nobody's gonna listen to them?" So if you have an organization where the people on the floor actually feel like they're invested, like that you listen to them, that they actually will benefit if they give advice, that they can move up if they give advice. They're not
Yeah.
locked into where they are. Then you have an organization that's more dynamic and flourishing because it's not negative, it's not toxic. And it's not kind of top down in it and saying, "Well, we're up in this ivory tower and you guys are on the floor and you guys know nothing."
Yeah.
I think
When
that
they're the ones doing the everyday work with their hands, right?
yeah, so
They're
there's no
the ones
respect.
with the yeah. Well, and if we don't listen to each other, if we don't stop long, and that's why I love podcasting. I love long form conversation because it's nuanced. We can get more in there. If we don't stop and listen to each other in order to experience perspective shifts, nothing's going to change for us. We must listen to each other. And I think the reason why I was such a good director is when I started in corporate, I did the work that I was directing. So I knew the work inside and
Yeah,
out.
yeah, if you
So
come
I
from
had
the
been
work.
there. And so I think those are some of your best leaders, the ones that will get in and get their hands dirty too.
Yeah, the ones that come up from the floor, like, if you have somebody that was actually, came from the production floor to the C-suite, then they understand the issue of the common worker.
Yeah.
They understand that that worker should be respected. Instead, you got some folks today that say, "Oh, the worker's just a widget, and the AI agent can replace them, and the human being's overrated, and we don't need really have to care about the human beings. We should be focused on the agents." I'm like, "Really? That's what you're going to tell your workforce?" There was a banker,
That's
then
not a
CEO,
good idea.
that actually went and said something like that. And I'm like, "So what do you think
Wow.
your workers think about you?
Yeah.
Like, why would you go and say that?
Yeah.
Like, do you not have any kind of situational awareness for where you are?" This is
Yeah.
some of the folks I just don't understand. Like, it may be because they didn't get any softer skills when they were going to school. They were just all into economics, all into math, and didn't ever take any history classes, any English lit classes. They didn't take any philosophy classes. They didn't take any religion classes or any kind of idea outside of like, I'm only going to do this. But the problem is human beings aren't just one thing. We're multiple pillars. There's a soul, there's a spirit, there's a body. And if you only listen to logical brain, you don't listen to anything else, you're going to be pretty weak.
Well, I think emotional intelligence plays a pivotal part here. You can have, I'm a case study. You can have a very high IQ with zero emotional intelligence skills, and you're going to be making some really bad choices. Bad choices that might land you into, I don't know, maybe institutions somewhere. So I wish that we taught things like boundaries in middle school. I wish we taught emotional intelligence skills like
Mhm.
curiosity, like active listening in middle school. We don't highlight emotional intelligence, and that's the work I do in trauma and addiction dual diagnosis recovery centers, is bring emotional intelligence skills into the equation so people can be emotionally regulated and have knowledge of their emotions. And you're right, philosophy and history and all of those are so very, very important. But I think you can have a very high IQ and zero EQ skills, and that makes for some bad decision making sometimes.
Yeah, I find like in the tech field that we got some STEM heavy people. They should have read Grapes of Wrath. They should have read Moby Dick. They should have read the Iliad. They should have read some Shakespeare and not just read the Cliff Notes to pass the test. They need to actually read the text, right?
Yeah.
Read any of the great religious, text on top of reading poetry, understanding history, having philosophy, having like some of those softer skills because like when you get into the world, I think a lot of times people expect, well, you're gonna learn it at home. But what if you had a toxic home life?
Mhm.
They assume that the family's gonna give you everything. But there's a lot of families that are broken.
Mhm.
And if the family structure is broken, you're counting on that to build a full citizen that's gonna understand how to integrate into the overall society, into the macrocosm. But there's like a failure,
Yeah.
50% divorce rate. So how are you trusting that that structure is actually building folks that actually know how to cope with life?
Yeah.
They don't. So then society has like an obligation to figure like, well, where is it lacking? And then we have to have, people like yourself come in. But it's like you have to find those people, or those people have to find you.
And you have to convince them that, look, you need this. Like having an emotional intelligence skill program in your corporation will increase productivity by 50% and decrease interpersonal conflict by 25%. Those are huge
Yeah.
numbers that everybody should want. So why aren't we doing more of it? We just need more of it because it
Everybody's
does
looking for
take,
your certification, like you're looking for your STEM certification, right?
yeah.
You're not looking for your human being certification.
Yes, we are human beings first. We are human first. And you're right. We all come from various backgrounds. Most of us did most trauma and trauma is part of the human experience. We all have it. We all have it. Some of us more severe to varying degrees for obvious reasons when you start hearing people's stories, but trauma is part of the human experience. We all have it, we all carry it. It is our personal responsibility to make sure we are not projecting our pain onto people. It is our personal responsibility that we are not projecting blame
Mhm.
onto people. It is our personal responsibility to take that and convert it using your words or transmute it using my words into something that brings skills and beauty and new tools and a new way of being into the world. Everything is so divisive right now. And I think it's us creatives that are going to be the solution to that. I think we are needed now more than ever.
Yeah. Well, I probably end today is like, is the AI bots and agents aren't bringing the next age. It's we're going back to the human being is bringing us into the next age.
Yeah.
And when people figure out that it's not that, you know, chat bot that's going to save you, it's your fellow human being and it's yourself, understanding yourself first
Yeah.
and then understand your neighbor and then understand that other. So they're not your other, they are your neighbor. They're your fellow human being on the planet Earth, right? It's like if you come to the planet Earth, right? Every human being has a right to be on the planet Earth.
Yeah.
But
Earth
you would
school is hard. Earth school is the hardest school.
but then you would like tell you like, oh, the human beings don't have the right to be anywhere on the planet. We're native to the planet.
Mhm.
So like, but if you take a go out into space and look at the planets, like life is precious. If you found a human being on some other planet, you would say, well, that's amazing. But when you look on this plane, you see another human being, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Not
like,
really not seeing each other,
yeah,
seeing each other for our individuality and our individual gifts, and just extending some generosity and some curiosity. Curiosity is such a great emotional intelligence skill, and it's very overlooked as an EI skill. But just be curious about each other. Curiosity puts you in the state of willingness, which on David L. Harkin's map of consciousness sits at about a 310 on the scale of vibrations, the emotional vibrations, whereas shame and guilt is at about a 20 or 50. Happiness, ecstasy, joy, all of those sit at about a 500. Those are a little harder to stay in states of ecstasy 24/7, but you can sit in a state of curiosity and willingness to understand without blame, to understand yourself without judgment, to ditch the guilt and shame that you're carrying around. I think if we just all started ditching our own guilt and shame, it would make us suffer less, happier human beings, and much more connected with the people around us.
I definitely think we can end it on that note. I think that's a real positive note for day on a Saturday morning. We do have your QR code there. I encourage everybody to take their phone, scan that. That will allow you to go to your LinkedIn, and people can contact you there. We do have your TikTok as well. We've been live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Kick. And I encourage people to click on or like scan that to be able to communicate with you. And I'm glad that we had the conversation today. I wish we had more time, but have another podcast I have to do. But I want to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today on the Family Luck to Ghost podcast.
Yeah, what a great way to start the day. Keep rolling. I appreciate you, my friend. I'll see you
Thank you.
next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.